Hello, everyone. My name's Sean Saunier, new owner of this building, and it's such a pleasure for my wife and I to have you all here this evening for this important community event. I'm particularly grateful to see so many political candidates here tonight that have taken what I think is a very courageous public step to put their name forward to serve in the public interest as a city or regional councillor, as a mayor, or as chair of the regional government. And all of these roles are such an important part of our basic building blocks for our democracy. And so I just want to throw out a bravo to you for your willingness to serve all of us. And I just was curious, a lot of people tell me that they've known about this building for 27 years, but they never actually knew what happened in here. Is this the first time for anybody in this particular studio? Isn't it amazing to see that we have this kind of infrastructure here in Burlington? We have 3 lovely studios in here, post-production facilities and offices now for over 100,000 square feet for entrepreneurs and for content creators, and the organization Huntley Street and Crossroads, they are still tenants in this building. We're very proud to have them here. We don't have any religious affiliations. The building is a public building, and it's here for all people that create content or that want to run their business here. And our job, our goal at NUVO Network, because some people are saying, what's NUVO Network? Well, our job is to help create, we say we want to bolt wings on people. That's what this little wing in the NUVO is about. If you look back there, that was a little surprise given to us tonight by Kun Hua. And we're just very proud of what we're trying to do here as part of the community infrastructure. And one of our lovely tenants in this building, of which we have, I think there are about 60 different organizations now, is BurlingtonGreen. And we're very proud to have them, when they approached us and said they wanted to, once again, as they did in the last election, host a nonpartisan community event for all candidates to attend. And so we're very proud to have them here. And I just wanted to take a moment to tell you a little bit about the moderator. Some people have said to me, oh, look, we hear there's going to be a famous comedian coming. It's Amy Schumer is going to be here tonight. Right? And actually, we have done better than that. We have Amy Schumer here tonight. And she's the co-founder of BurlingtonGreen. She acts as the executive director, and she's really dedicated herself over the past 30 years to environmental education and protection and justice. She has a BSc in environmental science and a minor in First Nations studies. She really is a great pillar of the community, and we're very proud to also say that she's a proud recipient of Burlington's Best Environmental Award. So it's my real pleasure to introduce Amy Schumer here tonight as the MC and as the debate moderator. Please give her a warm welcome.
My goodness. Thank you so much. Look at all those beautiful faces. I've had a chance to walk around and introduce myself to so many of you, and I just want to begin by, first of all, thanking Sean for that lovely introduction and thanking every single one of you for, I know your lives are so busy and you're choosing to come out tonight to participate in this wonderful event. Amy Schumer, you say. My goodness, I didn't plan any jokes or anything, so that's an interesting introduction. I will say, as my team knows, that today was a little bit of a, I'm going to be honest, it was a little hectic. You know what it's like, leading up to a big event, and you're nervous, and I was fumbling with my notes, and I had to dash to the store, and upon returning from the store, I'm going to say it, I realized my pants were inside out. Yeah, but here's why I went to the store. You know why I went to the store? I felt, just in case, wonderful candidates, I went and got a whistle. Right, I got a whistle. And I actually have a referee shirt under here. Don't make me use either of these tonight. So, but that's the only jokes I'm going to make, if that's even considered remotely funny. Anyway, I would like to begin, as we always do with our events at Burlington Green, by recognizing that Burlington has been a gathering place for people of Turtle Island for many generations. Halton, as we know it today, is rich in history and modern traditions of many First Nations and the Métis. From the Anishinaabe to the Attawandaron, the Haudenosaunee, and the Métis, these lands surrounding the Great Lakes are steeped in Indigenous history. As we gather here this evening on these treaty lands, we have the responsibility to honor and respect the four directions: land, water, plants, animals, ancestors that walked before us, and all the wonderful elements of creation that exist. We would like to acknowledge and thank the Mississaugas of the New Credit First Nation for sharing their traditional territory with us. So democracy is clearly alive and well in Burlington. Thank you all again for coming tonight. And as Martin Luther King Jr. once said, our lives begin to end the day we become silent about the things that matter. And obviously, indeed, determining who our city's future leaders are matters. And of course, that's why you're all here this evening. Perhaps many of you, maybe raise of hand, how many of you have been to other debates in recent weeks? Raise your hand. Wow. I know you have. You folks have. This isn't your first time. And I, too, and many of our team at Burlington Green and NUVO have been, and it's just so inspirational to go to those events. And ECOB has been fantastic at organizing events, and if you missed any of them, the great news is you can watch them all on YouTube, so we encourage you to do that. But I'd like you to please join me in offering our appreciation to ECOB, as well as any other organization that has or will be hosting a debate. It is because, like NUVO Network and Burlington Green, we just want to use this opportunity to give back to the community and help you make informed decisions. So a round of applause for everybody in the community. And I'll just add, picking up for where Sean left off, that Burlington Green is really honored to collaborate on this experience tonight with NUVO Network. We have a lot in common. I think most importantly that we are both have a common objective of creating and building communities and having an inclusive environment and engaging event experiences. So we're really honored to join with them to present this evening's activities. We'd like to thank the media for attending, and we would like to thank all the candidates. I know we had 100%, and so that's 39 candidates. That's 37 municipal candidates and 2 regional chair candidates, and every single person said they were coming, and I'm looking around. I met most of you. I think almost everyone's here. So thank you, all of the candidates, for attending this evening as well. And just before we get started, a few things. A couple folks have been asking me, they want to share their night tonight on social media. Please, we encourage you to do that. And if you'd like to use our hashtag OurVoice18, that would be fantastic. We've been using that for many weeks leading up to the October 22nd. And also I want to point out that our events with Burlington Green, we always strive to walk the talk, and tonight's event is sponsored by Bullfrog Power. What that means is that all of the conventional electricity that we're using tonight in this space is 100% green power is being put into the grid to match that amount of conventional electricity. And I think we have somebody from Bullfrog here tonight, do we? Didn't come? Anyway, thank you again very much, Bullfrog, for your support. We really, really appreciate it. And lastly, I just want to say, as been said at the other debates, that absolutely, especially in talking with various candidates, it is a lot of work. A lot of work. It's financial expense, it's putting your name out there, it's pounding the pavement, talking and walking in the neighborhoods, lots of extensive communications, and sacrifice. And I think we all owe everyone in this room who has put their name forward, whether it's the wonderful trustees from both school boards at the back, or the ward candidates around the room, or the 4 leaders here up before us today, thank you from the bottom of our hearts for putting your name forward. We really appreciate it. Okay, are we ready? Are we ready to get the show on the road? Just quickly, the candidates all realize, but you may not, that we did a brief draw right before we all walked up here on stage, and that determined what the order is of seating and the order of how we're going to begin with our questions. And all the candidates were informed that we're going to begin with each of them having 2 minutes for opening statements. And then following that, I will be fed some questions, which I'll comment on in a moment, and they each have up to 2 minutes. You might not use the whole 2 minutes, you might, but they're there. 2 minutes for each question, and then to close the evening, they'll each have 1 minute to sum up their comments. And we know they're going to be on track because they've been doing this. They're pros, they're experts. But just in case they need a little help, I have wonderful volunteers in the front with nice, big, bold 60-second countdown, 30-second countdown, 10-second countdown. Just in case you need it, you can look to them and they're going to help you out with that. Where did the questions come from? All of you wonderful, kind people many of you have jotted down on your way in your questions. If we answered all the questions, then we should have brought sleeping bags because we would be here for weeks. We're not going to be able to do that. But we have Gloria Reed, the board president, who's doing a fantastic job at sorting all the questions so that we have a nice mix of questions about various topics. And they've been handed to me, and I haven't seen them yet, so I hope they're all legible, and I'll be sharing those questions in just a moment. Okay, and just lastly mentioned, I have been so impressed with all the debates that I've been going to at the respect that's happened within the audience as well as the candidates on stage. I know we're going to get more of that this evening, so obviously no booing or hissing, or even if you can hold your applause till after the candidates have finished speaking, that would be super because we don't want to cut into their valuable 2-minute time answering those questions. All right, everybody set? Excited? Democracy, here we go. All right, so we are going to begin based on the draw to my immediate left with Greg, and I'm going to use first names because I know all of them well, and it's just easier for me, so that's what we're going to do. So we're going to begin with 2 minutes on the clock for Greg to begin with his opening statement.
We're taking this out of here, right?
Sure, I apologize. Yeah.
Hello, so everyone, again, thanks for coming here. It's gratifying to put all the time and energy into running, and then the room is filled with people, so you can see that people are interested to and engaged to and willing to give their time and energy to the community as well. So my history was that I live out in Aldershot, and about 2012, I became aware of some changes in the community that I didn't think were positive. And so at first, you're very naive. You go into City Hall and you attempt to figure out what's going on and put forward ways that this could be changed to benefit everyone. So by 2014, I pretty much realized that what the city was doing and what was going on was not understood by people at all. And there were a whole bunch of things coming down the pipe and places to grow and all these systems. But the basic thing about all of them is to change Burlington from a place that is of constant into never-ending growth. And the vision that I think we should have had in 2012, and we should have in 2014, and we should have right now, is to remain a low-rise community, right? And that's why one of the things I proposed is a 6-floor limit. And again, we should have had that in 2014, and we should have it now. And the reason behind that is twofold. The buildings won't go over the tree line, and it kind of messes up places to grow from the bottom up. And so I just want to make sure that everybody gets a good sense of the vision of where Burlington will be depending on who they vote for. So hopefully everyone gets that tonight. Thanks.
Great, thank you, Greg. Marianne.
Well, thank you to yourself, Amy, all the volunteers from Burlington Green for hosting this, my fellow candidates on the stage. It isn't easy to put your name forward, and I commend them for doing that and for their service to the community. But most of all, thanks to all of you for coming. We are at a crossroads, Burlington. We have to choose the future that we want for ourselves. When I moved here 19 years ago with our 2-year-old, my husband and I was pregnant with twins, we wanted a community that we would know our neighbor, where we would have trees and green space, where it used to take 10 minutes to get across town. All of that is changing. And it's changing not because the province is making us change. It is changing because of the decisions that have been made by the current council. And I'm running because I want to change those decisions. I want us to make better decisions for the next term of council. And we have an unprecedented opportunity right now to bring change. There are 2 members of council retiring, and my seat's vacant. I have to give up my Ward 2 seat, but I believe so strongly that waiting 4 years, it'll be too late to start to redirect our path for reasonable growth downtown, in neighborhoods across the city. We need to make changes. We need to restore trust with the community, restore a good working relationship between City Hall and residents, and we need more civility right on council to make the decisions that we need to make going forward. I have, you can read my plan, it's here. We have limited print copies just for folks that don't have computers. You can read all of it online, all of the ways that we can address some of the challenges that have been caused by overdevelopment and moving forward. So on October 22nd, I'm asking you to work with me and elect Mary Ann Mead Ward, your next mayor of Burlington.
Yeah. Thank you, Mary Ann. Mike?
Thank you, Amy, and I want to thank BurlingtonGreen and NUVO for hosting us here tonight. It's always a challenge to do debates. I've been doing it for over 22 years now, and I congratulate the candidates here tonight for putting their name forward and putting ideas on the table for where Burlington can go. A little bit of history. My wife and I chose Burlington to live in 1987 after we graduated from the University of Guelph. We raised 2 daughters here in Burlington. My 2 daughters now live in the United States, but I'd love to be able to attract them back to Burlington. I'm running in this race for really a couple of reasons. One, let's face it, we live in a fantastic community. Burlington is, even though we have problems and issues facing us, it's still a fantastic, fantastic place to live. We are facing some issues, though, and in my view, those issues cannot be solely challenged or fixed by the City Council alone. We need help, and I mean help from other levels of government. And I believe that with my experience as a City Councilor for 12 years and then a Member of Parliament for 9, and my understanding of the process and how to actually get things done, I believe that a number of our issues, whether it's congestion, whether it's the development that is happening downtown, we need to make changes at the provincial level to help us make changes here in Burlington, and so that we can control how we will look, how we will feel, how we will go forward as a community. I think I am the best candidate with the experience, the understanding of how to get things done, and the connections with the current government at Queen's Park to make that happen for this city. On October 22nd, please vote for Mike Wallace for mayor.
Yeah, thank you, Mike. And Rick?
Well, good evening, ladies and gentlemen, and thank you all for being here, and thanks to NUVO Network and BurlingtonGreen for hosting this event tonight. Great turnout. Thank you all for being here. You know, one of the great achievements that I'm most proud of over the last 8 years of council and serving as mayor is the strategic plan that all of City Council approved unanimously 2 years ago. We approved a strategic plan that outlines how we're going to grow, and it says right in the plan, we're going to develop mobility hubs in the downtown and in around the GO stations, and that was agreed to by all members of council. And the next step was to complete an official plan, which we have, a recently adopted official plan. And the next step after that is to do area-specific plans for the mobility hubs, as well as a new zoning bylaw for the whole city. But we have a new opportunity now. I know there's some angst about development in the city, but we have to realize that we are having the growth that we're having because it's mandated by the province. 13 years ago, the province of Ontario mandated that Burlington would grow. And 13 years ago, they decreed that downtown Burlington would be an urban growth center. So what's happening now is congruent with the decision that was made by the provincial government 13 years ago. But now we have an opportunity. Burlington has a new day at Queen's Park with a new government that will, in fact, have discussions. And I've already had preliminary discussions with the Ministry of Municipal Affairs and with other mayors who are concerned about the impact of places to grow. The merits of places to grow are sound. The challenge is how we can implement it and do it in a way that maintains our own community values. So I look forward to having that opportunity after October 22nd. And with your support, I will have that opportunity to reach out to the provincial government and have a new discussion about how growth can be managed in the city of Burlington. Thank you.
Great, thank you, Rick. And we'll pass the microphone to Marianne. Okay, excellent. So we'll start with question number 1 with Marianne. The question is, with all condos and apartments being built, what would you do about increased traffic in Burlington?
Well, thank you for the question. The first thing we do is we don't overdevelop. And that is what's happening with the decisions made by the current council, approving applications in neighborhoods across the city that are 2, 3, 4 times what's in the official plan, 2, 3, and 4 times what the provincial government even requires us to do. So we have to stop that because we don't have the infrastructure to accommodate that growth, and we've all experienced the congestion that comes out of that. We can do a number of things: synchronized traffic lights, better intersection design, better management of our emergency detour route. If you've ever seen those yellow signs with the black EDR, that's where people are supposed to go when there's problems on the QEW. They almost never stick to it, so we need enforcement of that. I'm open to looking at roundabouts to help to speed the flow of traffic. We also need to do much more to invest in transit. It shouldn't take somebody 2 hours to get across town. It shouldn't take 2 transfers and a GO train and $14 and an hour and a half for me to get to regional council, where I also sit as a regional council member. So until we make transit work and give people a realistic choice to get out of their car, we're going to continue to have the congestion that we see on our streets. We also need to give incentives. I firmly believe in the incentive carrot approach as opposed to the stick, and giving seniors free fares on Mondays, giving free off-peak transit, giving our students free fares, so that we can put people on our buses largely at times when they're empty or they're not fully utilized. So these are just some of the things that we can do to better manage our traffic, but it really starts with getting growth right and getting growth scaled to the infrastructure that we have.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you for the question. I want to stick to the actual question. I'm hoping there'll be a question about transit come.
I haven't looked ahead.
Yeah, but I'm hoping that gives me an opportunity. But look, if there was a magic wand to change congestion and traffic flow in Burlington, I'm confident that the current council would have at least looked at it, if not have done something about it. It is a very difficult issue, absolutely. And you'll be hearing from all the candidates we should be doing a better job of synchronizing our lights. And that is absolutely true. And we need to look at what new technologies are coming forward to be able to implement that here in Burlington. I know that there are technologies out there that read which cars are going through which intersection and how often they go, and they adjust the light system to that flow. But I think there should be some other ideas that I've been put out during this campaign. Is when we have an issue on the bridge or on the QEW, it really gets jammed on our streets as people come off. Is there a way that we, as other communities have done, to turn roads such as Mainway or Harvester into three-way direction, going one way in 3 lanes and coming back on 1? Is there an opportunity to be able to get that traffic flowing through the city in a more efficient and an effective manner than we have now? I don't actually have the answer if that is possible or not, but those are the kinds of innovative ideas that I think we need to be looking at to help make sure that we do what we can to improve the traffic flow. We cannot ignore that the car is going to exist in this community for many, many decades to come, and we need to try to solve those problems in a more efficient and effective manner than we're doing thus far.
Thank you.
So I really appreciate the question. And a part of it can be answered through land use planning. As I mentioned at the outset, we have identified the areas around our GO stations for intensification and infill and redevelopment to create new mixed-use, compact, walkable communities with lots of amenities and lots of retail stores and parks and community centers and so on. But they're built around transit. And right now, Burlington Transit has a system that's very busy along Plains Road, Fairview, and other streets in our city. We need to have more frequent transit in Burlington. But the GO system will, in fact, be more frequent. Within 6 years, there'll be electrification and 15-minute all-day service. So by building new communities around the GO stations and having amenities that are in central locations around the GO stations that people can walk to their the needs that they have for retail stores or services. And people can take transit. And there's car share programs in the development that they can book a car if they need to go to Fortino's or they need to go to Costco or wherever they need to go. But by building mixed-use, compact, walkable communities, we can mitigate the impact on traffic going forward. I also want to point out the other ideas, smarter traffic signals. We already are piloting a different technology for traffic lights. And this technology allows real-time reading of data, of traffic data that can help adjust the signals on a more frequent basis. I mentioned the idea of, we got 30 seconds left. I mentioned the idea of enhancing our frequency on Burlington Transit on the major routes, and also looking at a transit cab service within the neighborhoods that will take people from their neighborhoods, from the center of their neighborhoods, to the major transit station that's closest to them. We need to have an emergency plan when the highways get backed up in a significant way, like we saw at the end of June, and work with the MTO, the OPP, and the Halton Police,
Okay.
and so on and
Thanks,
so forth.
Rick. Thank you. Greg? Do you need the question again, Greg? Sure, go ahead. Okay. With all condos and apartments being built, what would you do about increased traffic in Burlington?
Okay, one thing I'm going to straighten out before I get into the traffic question is the basic thrust of intensification comes from the province. It is not invented by City Council. And the system they have set up is you can pass whatever laws you want, but the developer can always go to the LPAT or the OMB and get an overrule of whatever you said. So the city is constrained. It's not a free hand, and it's not like council can just exist in a bubble and do whatever they want and no one can overrule them. It's a real device, and you better consider that it's a real device, and you need the province to change it if you want to do things that conflict with this overarching provincial system. But anyway, on to the traffic question. What you have to realize is that as part of this process, they have reconceptualized Burlington as a box. And the best box hold the most people. So while we're talking about 50, 100,000 people now, the party never ends under this scheme. So this is why the traffic question comes up. Because if you imagine 50,000 more people in Burlington, you might get away with synchronized lights. If you imagine 100, you might get away with lane expansion. But if you imagine 250,000 more people, 300,000 more people, then eventually the traffic system fails. And that's why, although your listener implies that the city is trying to alleviate traffic, but a lot of people will tell you that's a mistake. Because what you need to do is just let the roads congest, and then people will seek alternatives. This is a real idea. Okay, that's out there, that's executing. It's not some crazy notion that I made up. And it's part of a recurring theme of how far what the city is actually executing is from the expectation of what the average person thinks that they're working on day to day. So traffic synchronized lights are good if you can limit growth, but if it just keeps coming up, eventually that system breaks down too.
Thank you. Right on time. And Mike. How we doing, folks? Engaged? Excellent. Thanks for your attentiveness. Okay, question number 2. We'll begin with Mike. Given that climate change is a critical issue, what specific actions will you take to establish a Made in Burlington climate action strategy with bold, measurable targets?
Well, thank you for the question. And as I have to be, as people who know me, I'm very upfront and I'm a realist. I don't have the answer to that question in terms of a strategy that I have specifically. I don't have it in my platform, a climate change plan for the city. I think for me, I need to rely on those who are knowledgeable, more knowledgeable than me in that area of what we could be doing as a community. I believe that there are issues with climate change and other forms, in my view, of pollution, and that we should be tackling all of them in a realistic and a manner that is achievable. I think what's important to me is whatever plan that comes forward through the city on this topic or on others, it needs to be achievable, and it has to have goals that are realistic and are measurable so that we can say this is how far we've gotten on this issue and where we can go on it. Look at my work that I have done in the past has been mostly around clean water, whether it's the work I did to get the funding for the cleanup of Randall Reef, or even the help for the tertiary cleaning of the water that we put back into the lake at Skyway Plaza. I thought those were realistic, doable, achievable opportunities for the city and for this region, and that's why I pursued them. And that's what the kind of thing that I would look for in any plan, whether it's to deal with pollution or climate change in this community.
Thank you. Rick?
So thanks for the question. In 2006, I ran for the Green Party in the federal election in 2006. That was a big year for you, Mike. You got elected in that election. I thought I might finish third, but I finished fourth. But in any event, that's one of the reasons I got involved in serving the city in the way I do. And I made a list of a lot of the things that we've been involved with as a city in the last number of years. But the issue of climate change is not a simple one. It is a global issue, and you need everybody to be marching in the same beat together, and it's very difficult to get that happening worldwide. So we have to be leaders on our own. But in Burlington, under my leadership, we have a community energy plan. And that was an idea that came from Burlington Green. Actually, Ken Woodruff was the president, Greg's uncle, and he met with me and pushed the idea of a community energy plan, which we now have, and we have a stakeholder committee that has made a difference in reducing energy consumption in the city. We're involved as a city with the City of Hamilton and Mohawk College in the Center for Climate Change Management at Mohawk, which over time I believe we can learn from best practices and apply them in the city of Burlington. We have passed sustainability guidelines with our new official plan that will help guide more sustainable development in the city and mitigate or minimize the greenhouse gas emissions. We have a policy in the city to have sustainable buildings that we build, and we have three relatively new leadership in energy and environmental design buildings in the city. We're greening the city fleet, and we have electric car recharging stations. We have a private tree bylaw that we're trying out, that I convinced council to go along with, that we're trying out in Roseland, that we hope to roll out across the city. But I'm going to go back to our strategic plan. With the guidance of Burlington Green, we incorporate a number of directions as far as reducing greenhouse gas emissions. And I go back to land use planning. That's absolutely critical. If we get the land use planning right, you'll reduce greenhouse gas emissions a lot.
Sorry, Rick, you're going to have to wrap up. Yeah, as much as I love to continue talking about climate change. Yep, it's over to Greg. Would you like the question repeated, or are you good? Okay, so given that climate change is a critical issue, what specific actions will you take to establish a Made in Burlington climate action strategy with bold, measurable targets?
So one of the thrusts behind intensification is the idea is that you're changing the energy profile of a person. A person lives in a single-family house, uses a lot of energy, they drive around, they use a lot of energy. That's true. And if they were walking and living in an apartment, they would use less energy. And this transition would be better for everyone. So here's the problem. The problem is, as executed, it is working at best opposite. Because I live in Aldershot, And if anyone thinks there's more things to walk to Aldershot than when there was 6 years ago, they're just not right. We've lost one hardware store, we're going to lose another for condos, and you're packing people whose primary mechanism of travel is going to be cars, okay? You're putting traffic lights all over the place, and you just ask someone who drives down Plains Road, okay? How many cars are stacked up in front of these lights, right? All idling, all mostly gas cars. So you can't, in the name of the environment, make things worse. And if you ask me right now, you're making things worse. And there's a variety of things we can do to repair that. Now, on to the goals. The way I would like to handle climate change is, and I think the appropriate way with the free market economy, is if you want to reduce carbon, you got to put a straight up price on emitting a pound of carbon, and the feds have to do it. No cap and trade, no nothing. Just you emit carbon, you have to pay some fee. And that's something that can scale globally and can execute in the fair market in a way that reduces carbon globally. Because it's very hard for us to make up systems that don't either put Burlington at a competitive disadvantage or make something more expensive in Burlington. And you really do need a global, federal, or at least provincial top-down solution to actually make change. And not just make ourselves feel better by making minor corrections that don't actually tackle the problem.
Okay, thank you. Marianne, would you like the question, or are you good?
No, I'm good.
Okay.
Thank you very much for the question. So we know that we're getting more and more severe weather, whether that's windstorms, ice storms, the flood twice in 1 year. These were the 100-year events that happened in 6 months, within 6 months of each other. And this is a wake-up call to the globe, to the whole country, but everyone is facing more severe weather. So I've put together a flood management plan, and it includes things like, first of all, let's not overdevelop. If we allow, which has been the case by the current council, lot line to lot line development, there is no place for green space around that. And green space is green infrastructure. It's much more than pretty grass and trees to look at. This cleans our air, this filters our water before it gets into our stormwater management system. The best thing we can do to protect ourselves against flooding is to have green infrastructure that keeps it out of our storm sewers in the first place. So permeable driveways, more tree planting. We need tree planting incentives, and there are organizations out there, provincial and federal, that we can get funding from to plant more trees. Our tree canopy right now is 17%. A good tree canopy is 30 to 50. One of the things that I was successful in getting through during the official plan was to set a target when we look at our tree plan. So I think it should be about 40%. Our neighbors in Oakville have already set that. So those are a couple of things we need to do. We also need to push for provincial review of the North Aldershot quarry. This is a real-time environmental issue right on our watch. So looking at the potential clear cut of 9,000 trees there, looking at the continued quarrying activity that is right near residential. It's a 40-year-old license. Our understanding of environmental issues has changed.
Okay, thank you, Marianne. Okay. Okay, moving right along. Question number 3, we're going to start with Rick. What is your greatest strength as a leader, and what skill set do you need to work on?
That's an interesting question. That's a fair question. I would say my greatest strength is my ability to listen. I'm able to listen without a filter, and I listen very carefully to all points of view, and I think that's a strength. But I think it can be a challenge sometimes, because then you hear this, you hear that, you hear this, and you hear that. So I would say my greatest strength, being able to listen to everybody and hear everything, maybe sometimes is a weakness when you got to make a decision and you got to move on. So it's a strength to listen to people, but sometimes if you're listening to people all the time and it's an endless circuit and it precludes you from making a decision, that's not a good thing. And sometimes I ruminate too much when I need to make a decision. So I would say making a decision more quickly.
Okay, thanks, Rick. And over to Greg. Go, Greg.
So the number one leadership quality, I think, is to build up everyone around you. And so if I've contributed that you guys go home and I've contributed to a greater understanding of what's going on in the city and a greater awakening, that's the positive impact that I'd like to, that I would like to contribute. And I attempt to think about these things very deeply. I attempt to attack my own ideas. Is this right? Is this going to work? Do I have an understanding of what's going on? And I attempt to go to the bottom of the tree. What is actually creating this thing? Because with a lot of these issues that are coming up, it's very easy to just look at the leaves and get boxed into a very simple narrative, right? There's good people and there's bad people, and the bad people are just not doing what we want and the good people will. But in reality, if you talk to people and you get their perspective, I find the perspective is actually that there's just different peoples of different, oh, there you go, I got 50 more seconds there. I was like 10 seconds. But if you reach out and you talk to these people that seem to have a different, opinion to you, more often what you find out, it's not indifferent people and people that's good. It's different perspectives and different stakeholders colliding with each other. That's what's causing the conflict. It's not good people and bad people. All the people are good. They're all doing their best. It's different stakeholders colliding, and sometimes your position is not being represented and not being fought for. And that is what, creates negative outcomes, not indifference or anything of the sort.
Okay. Good.
Thank you. Well, as you know, my name is Marianne, but I often get called Margaret because my last name for a very long time before I got married was Mead. So I used to get called Margaret Mead, who is the famous anthropologist. And she said, never forget that a small group of people, never doubt that a small group of people can change the world. In fact, it's the only thing that ever has. I believe that so strongly. I think my strength is that I believe in the power of people coming together. And I'll tell you one example. I can give you many, but the very first motion that I ever brought to City Council, January 17, 2011, was to stop the demolition of the Freeman train station. I believed so strongly that if we gave the people a chance to save that station, that the people could do what City Council had 2 years and $1 million of funding and still couldn't do. They gave us 3 months to put together a committee to get incorporated and to report back to council on whether in fact the community could save that station. And you can now visit the Freeman train station. We were just there, many of us with doors open. It has not only been saved, it is a thriving part of telling the story and the history of Burlington. That's what people can do. And I have seen that story replayed so many times in the 8 years that I've been on council. So we have much more work to do. People, I'm not gonna sugarcoat that. We have a lot of work to do, but I believe we can do it together. I can't give you guarantees, but what I can tell you is this. If we work together, we will be unstoppable. We will fix the issues in our community, and we will build a better future for the people that are coming, not only today, but coming after us here in Burlington, because that's the legacy that we benefited
thanks,
from.
Marianne. Good. Okay. And Mike, I'll just repeat, what is your greatest strength as a leader, and what skill set do you need to work on?
Thank you, Amy, for repeating that so I remember what my strengths and weaknesses are. Yeah. I would say to answer the question, my strength is collaboration with other groups. If you look at my successes that I've had in this community over the years, over the 22 years, whether it was on council, whether it was saving parkland at Paletta Park, whether it was the development of the Performing Arts Center, whether it was saving parkland around schools that were closing, all of those items had dealt with collaboration. That's working with my council that I was on, or my team in Ottawa, whether it was working with the community groups that were interested, the neighborhoods, the individuals that were affected, and in many cases with the development community that was interested in something different or something different. Let's take Hearthstone, for example, where the Pig and Whistle was. They were going to tear the Pig and Whistle down. We were able to work with that developer to be able to save the Pig and Whistle building as part of that development. That type of collaboration, I think, needs to happen at the city council table. It has to happen in the community, and it has to happen with other levels of government for us to get things done. I understand the process, and I think my strength is my ability to collaborate with others. My weakness, sometimes, well, at least this is what my wife says, and I've been married for 31 years, so she probably knows that sometimes I'm a little too frank on how I feel about something or what I think. Some people like that frankness. Others may take it the wrong way, but at least I'm upfront and honest with people on how I feel and what I think needs to be done. And sometimes that can hurt me, but so based on what my wife tells me, it's a weakness of mine.
Thank you. And over to Greg, I believe. Pass the mic. No, it's for the next question. Yeah. Yeah, we've already whipped through that strength and weakness one. Okay, good stuff. All right, ready for question number 4. It's a little bit long, but I'll be clear. The Center of Innovation in Technology is said to be in the tech triangle that includes Toronto and Kitchener to Waterloo. What public policy decisions need to be made to make Burlington Halton the third point of that triangle?
Okay, so I work in IT. I actually run a company that builds web applications for other companies. So the question here is, Burlington is sitting on a bunch of employment lands. They're currently employment fields. They're just employing grasshoppers and whatever is out in the field. And they have this employment designation on them. And you get into a fight with the developers, because the developers, and they're right on this point, say if you think that somebody wants us to build 30-story office buildings surrounded by parking and there's some huge market for that, you are wrong, right? That's not what people are looking for. What they're looking for is a more integrated mixed-use kind of thing where their employees can go have lunch and have dinner. And that's the kind of place that these tech employers want. They don't want the sterile environment. They want a mixed-use and vibrant environment for their employees. And that is something that we do have the lands to build. You know, we have a lot of employment lands that are tagged for employment, and we have to decide if we want to cut a deal with developers that allow some amount of residential, because that's really where the money is to be made, and that's what they're after. And the bargain then is that they have to shove some kind of employment and some kind of mixed-use community in there to get the type of development money in that would then follow the type of environment that these tech companies want to be. Because they don't want to be in sterile buildings, and we really don't have that much office space downtown. So that would be something that the city can realistically do. We can pull the trigger on that whenever we want. And we just have to make sure that we're getting a good deal for people, that there's a suitable amount of employment, and it's really actually a mixed-use community, not just, you know, small offices and condos like we're currently getting.
Okay, thank you.
Well, I ran out of time to give you my weakness, and my weakness is that I use a lot more words sometimes than are necessary. So anyone who has seen my newsletter and read it, it's very extensive, and that's why. So I'm working on that to be more brief and say what needs to be said in a shorter amount of time. The first thing I think we need to do when we're talking about job attraction, and whether it's technology sector or any other sector, is we need to be straight with you and with ourselves about the job numbers. What is real in the last years, 2016 to 2017, Burlington lost 17 companies. So one of the things that I am committed to doing as your mayor is being the chief salesperson and spokesperson for locating here in Burlington, whatever industry we want to attract I'm going to be out front. And I know from people who have worked in Mississauga that that's exactly what their mayor, Hazel McCallion, did. She was out knocking on doors, making sure that businesses who were expanding stayed there, and also going to attract businesses. We have tools in the Planning Act that we can use. An innovation district is one. I brought a motion that was not passed. It failed 6-1 for an innovation district downtown that would have allowed us to unlock some incentive tools, whether that's breaks on development charges or other incentives to bring business to downtown. I think that is our mixed-use community. That is our Liberty Village, if you will. It's already happening. It's already functioning, but we need to give it the tools that it needs. A community improvement plan downtown would unlock the same set of incentives that we can use to attract business.
Thank you.
Thank you very, very much for this question. One of my reasons for running is my concern for Burlington is that, look, at more than half the population is 55 and older, and we're losing our younger generation, our next generation of residents here in Burlington because of affordability and economic opportunities. One of the areas that I do have in my platform and have had since the beginning in July is that I want to bring a Liberty Village West style of community to Burlington. Very similar to what Greg was saying is that if my daughter's friends virtually all moved to Liberty Village. My son-in-law's business is there. It is a mixed-use area with lots of young people. I think the average age is 32 in that area. It's high-tech businesses, it's opportunity for affordable living, and opportunity from employment. I believe there are opportunities in Burlington for this to happen. I personally like the property that's across from the provincial park on Burloak between Mainway and Upper Middle. But there may be other opportunities for a Liberty Village development. I also believe that we need to look at our industrial, commercial properties that we have between Mainway and Harvester. Those are buildings built in the 70s. They don't meet today's standards in terms of what employers want for their employees and the type of environment that they want to work in. I think we should be looking at incentives for redevelopment of those properties for commercial use to attract the new higher technical opportunities that exist in this area. We have a highly skilled, trained workforce here. We need to be able to keep them and attract them and make Burlington part of that technology triangle.
Oh, thank you.
So the Liberty West Village idea has always been the focus of the mobility hubs around the GO stations to leverage the transit and create those opportunities for younger people to live and to get a toehold in the real estate market and be connected via transit and bring development out that way. I want to point out the fact that since I've been mayor, on average, I have 1 to 2 corporate calls per month where I go out and connect with different people in the community and different corporations and get a pulse of what's going on in the community. And we're fortunate in Burlington. We have the highest number of jobs per population in the Western GTA and more than Waterloo Region and more than Hamilton as well. We have a strong advanced manufacturing sector, a strong retail sector, and a strong professional services sector, among others. But one of the things I'm very proud of that we opened about 1.5 years ago, and that's Tech Place. The Burlington Economic Development Corporation identified the fact that companies between 2 to 5 years of age hire about 40% of the new jobs in Canada. So we established Tech Place through the Burlington Economic Development Corporation, which I serve on the board of, and we opened that up last June, and it's 8,700 square feet on the North Service Road, and we brought in entrepreneur-led technology firms and help them, like mentor them with some seasoned business leadership, provide some financing for them through, if they're eligible, through Angel One financing, and provide some real support to help them launch and go out and establish their own business as far as their own space and hire people and create more prosperity in the city. So far, we've had 8 launchpad companies be in Tech Place and depart and go out of the Tech Place and start growing in a significant way. So Tech Place was a significant opportunity that we're taking advantage of that's become more of a regional center as well.
Okay. And Mary Ann will be next. Good, thank you. Excellent. Okay. Remember, I'm reading these verbatim. Here we go. Mary Ann, like it or not, ready or not, love him or hate him, Doug Ford is our premier for the next 4 years. What is the most challenging thing about working with Queen's Park?
Well, I think we need a mayor who can work in a nonpartisan fashion, first of all. I think we need somebody who can work with any party at any level of government, and we have two different levels, right? We have Liberals at the federal level and Conservatives at the provincial level. I think what we need to do is send a strong message to Queen's Park. We can do that with this election. The number one issue from the community that I've talked to, and our team has been out in neighborhoods across the city. We have personally knocked on over 12,000 doors. And the number one message is that overdevelopment is compromising our character and quality of life. So we need to send a strong message that we will come back into controlling the targets. By the way, we've met all of our provincial growth targets for 2031. We met them about now. In 2031, we have to have 185,000 people. We had, in 2016, 183,000. So we don't need to grow beyond that. And so what the message that we want to send to our provincial counterparts is give us the tools to deal with the growth that we have. So help us with affordable housing, unlock some funding for that. Help us with our infrastructure, unlock some funding for that. And I think that we can do that if we send a strong message by electing a new mayor and a new members of council that will say, we're not going to continue to grow by making decisions and votes at our council and by stopping what's been happening for the last 8 years on council. And that will have credibility when we go and talk to Doug Ford, because we will not have credibility to ask for reasonable growth.
Okay, time's up. Great. Do you need that repeated, or are you good?
No, I know it's
Okay.
about Doug Ford, so I like it. Working with the new provincial government, I disagree with Marianne completely. They are partisan. I've been part of a partisan government before at the federal level, and I want to give you an example of why I believe that I have a better opportunity as the next mayor of Burlington to make a difference for Burlington at Queen's Park. People would come to see me when I was the member of parliament during the recession. They were looking for funding and help for different programs from the federal government. And I would often tell them, what is your main goal? Our goal as a government was to create jobs. If your program was able to demonstrate that you were going to create jobs, I was happy to support it and make it happen. And look, I'll be frank with you, the city of Burlington did an excellent job in terms of being shovel ready on a large number of projects for that to happen. You need to understand the process, A. You need to understand what that government is trying to achieve, B. And then, in my view, the better relationship you have with those people who are actually in charge, the more opportunity you have to make a difference. And of all the candidates at this table, I believe that I am by far more experienced, understand the process, and better connected to this current provincial government than anybody else up here. I believe I can get Burlington's issues to the front of the line by the connections, the relationships, and the understanding of the process that needs to happen so that we can actually take control of what we want to see happen here in Burlington. Thank you.
So I just want to clarify something with regard to growth numbers. It's true that we have a 2031 target for population of 185,000. But life doesn't stop in 2031. And what's going to happen next year at Halton Region in 2019 is Halton Region, again, mandated by the provincial government, has to divide up 220,000 of population growth between 2031 and 2041. So even if that's 40,000 or a quarter or a little bit more than a quarter, that is a significant number that we have to plan for next year. So I just want to be really clear that the world doesn't stop in 2031 just because we've reached the growth target now of 185,000. And what the growth target potentially could be is about a 1% population increase, which is quite sustainable going forward. So interesting question about the new Premier. I pride myself that I can work with any level of government. I can work with any political party, and I proved that. I've worked with Mike when he was a member of Parliament, and I think we worked very well together. I work with Karina Gould exceptionally well, who's a Liberal member of Parliament. I worked with Eleanor McMahon. She was the Liberal member of Parliament, and I'm working very well right now with Jay McKenna, who's helped provide me an entree to connect with the staff of the Ministry of Municipal Affairs to discuss the Places to Grow plan after the election. So I'm nonpartisan. I ran for the Green Party in 2006 when I was elected mayor. I resigned my membership of the Green Party, and I feel it's much better to be nonpartisan, and that way you can connect with anybody.
So I've been thinking on the last 4 years, from 2014 to 2018, how do you stop this stuff? And that whole campaign that I put together is designed for that conversation with Doug Ford. Because I'm running around and saying we're going to do a global 6-floor limit. Because overdevelopment means different things to different people. And you can't tell if it's happening or not happening because everybody's definition is different. But the 6-floor limit is understandable. The buildings are either taller than that or not. And so when you're, meeting the Premier, I think the conversation goes a little something like this. First ever people's government. Very exciting. Buck of beer. Think we're all enjoying that. And here's something I promised people. To put this 6-floor limit in. So there's 2 ways this can go. Either this happens, or my political career is 4 years and that's it. Because people are going to come back in the next and say, nothing you said you wanted to do happened, Greg. And I'd be like, yep, and unless I have one heck of a tap dance routine, it's not going to work out well for me. So, if you are elected on a clean mandate, on a clean question that people understand, it's a different proposition because either the province complies in it or for the next 4 years, I'm going around saying this province doesn't care about you. They don't care about how you vote. They don't really believe in democracy. You want proof? I got elected, the buildings are over 6 floors. And I can't think of any other way it changes because they're not going to listen to me. They're going to listen to you. And they're going to look at a spreadsheet that goes, if we keep this up, we're no longer going to be in office. We're going to lose our seats. We're going to lose our representation from this area. And that is the only sequence I could figure out, in the past, 4 years that turns the ship and gets us the low-rise community I think everybody wants and everybody moved to.
Okay, thank you. Mike, you're going to be starting us off. Great. I'm so impressed. I'm looking out, seeing everyone just on the edge of their seat. You guys are are they doing a great job? They're doing a great job. That's excellent. Okay, Mike, you're going to start us off with this one. Do you support the quarry expansion in North Aldershot, where under the current plan, an estimated 9,000 trees will be cut down and shale extraction would occur 35 meters from homes?
Okay, here's my weakness. I'm going to be frank. The people who own the quarry have the legal license currently to have the extraction over the next number of years on that quarry. It's the law. They have the legal permits to do so. I have met with them to talk about what their plans were, so I have a better understanding of their plans. To me, the issue is two things. One, what can we do to mitigate any negative aspects that are going to affect the houses that are directly backing onto that property? And that's something that I think the city can work on with the residents and with the developer or the quarry operator in this case. And second of all, I do agree that that legislation is decades and decades and decades old without any changes to it. And I do believe that the concerns and the needs of the environment have changed since that legislation was put in place. And that we need to make that point to our friends at Queen's Park on what we'd like to see happen. But I have to be upfront. I'm not sure that it would be retroactive or they would be grandfathered of any changes, but I do believe it needs to be changed, and I do believe that municipalities, not just us, but municipalities across the province, should have more say in the matter than we have currently. And so that is my position. I'm happy to work with with all groups. I want to collaborate with all organizations in this community, on both sides of the issue, is to be able to find solutions that mitigate the problems and find a solution in terms of improving the legislation that is held by the province that will affect not just this community, but other communities across Ontario.
Thank you.
So I've been significantly involved in this particular issue. I've met with residents on many occasions. I met with representatives of the quarry. I've met with a previous minister of natural resources. I met with the current minister of the environment, with Jay McKenna, at a meeting in Ottawa in August. I've met with a former environmental commissioner of Ontario. I met with Ministry of the Environment staff and Ministry of Natural Resources staff, and the former MPP and the current MPP. I get the issue. And I do believe we have an opportunity with a new provincial government to revisit this particular issue. Let's try and fight, and let's see what we can get. Let's see if we can get some sort of compromise on this. I've pushed for peer reviews, and peer reviews are taking place. I've pushed for more monitoring of the dust impact, and the Ministry of the Environment agrees to push for more measurement of dust, more monitoring of the dust. But we need to figure out something here. This is a great concern of the community, and I get it. We got to make sure that there's no health impact on residents from the noise and dust, and that's why I asked for the noise and dust studies to be peer-reviewed, and we hope to get the results very soon. But I believe we need to continue to fight and figure out something, even if it's creating a larger setback away from the home so that we have 200 meters all the way down, and not just 40 or 50 meters at the top end. We need to make it consistent all the way down on the side of West Haven so everybody gets the same setback.
Okay. Greg?
Unfortunately, I've inherited Mike Wallace's fault of frankness. Too much exposure at debates. So I wish that, if the federal government comes down and says we're tearing up the permit, that would be nice. But we can't bet on that because they're going to get sued, and the companies depend that these permits can be executed whenever they want. So the idea that's going to happen, if it does, great, but let's just assume it won't. So now you're left with this. You got to write these guys a check for their land. They own it, and there's brick under it, and they mine brick, okay? So the only solution that I can think is get these guys money one way or the other. Because that's what we're all talking about, right? There's brick, and so you either buy the land or you let them mine their brick. But by hook or by crook, they're going to make their money. So there's a couple interesting possibilities. Either A, money is generated and you pay them X. And Rick hit on the boundary. That's going to be one element that I almost has to happen of at least 200 meters top to bottom. This is in people's backyards. I know they're rich homes, but that doesn't matter. It's still in people's backyards. If they were low-income homes, I wouldn't say it's fine. You know what I mean? It wouldn't be fine either, right? They're people in Burlington. They pay taxes. They deserve the same protection you would give anyone else. So 200 meters in the backyard, I think, is the minimum we can do. Now, the question is, nobody likes this, because they own two sizable quarries that at some stage they have to fill in and they have to revert to some sort of natural thing. So there is a possibility of creating some kind of deal of changing the zoning on those pieces of land that would allow them developed in some way that would generate money or a land swap or what have you. But it's either money or land if the feds don't, come magically through, which I don't have a lot of hope they will. So the settlement will piss everyone off for sure and meet no one's satisfaction.
Okay.
Well, thank you very much for the question. You know, the community has been fighting this for several years already, and they have asked the City Council to fight along with them. So it's not enough to say you're going to fight in an election. So there were 2 members of council that joined TEC when the Environmental Commissioner and Sarah Harmer and others came to talk about the impact of silica dust, which is what happens when there's quarrying activity, on human health. And that was myself and Councillor Taylor. This group, the Tyendega Environmental Coalition, tried to bring forward and put on council's agenda a request for us to advocate to the province for a minister's zoning order. And I'll explain that in a minute, but they were prevented from doing that. So we need to do a much better job of working with TEC, of working with the community. I too have met with Meridian and attended all of the public meetings in the last year that they've hosted for information. What we need to do first and foremost is put human health at the top of our list. That is our #1 priority. And there is evidence out there from the studies that I have seen that quarry dust that close to residential housing is a negative for human health. So yes, they have a 40-year-old license, but we cannot compromise the environment and our people, our Burlington residents, because of that. So we need to ask the provincial government for a minister's zoning order. I've been on record for over a year as supporting that, to stop any further quarrying closer to those homes while we look at a peer review of those studies and make sure that whatever happens there, it does not compromise human health. That's step #1. And if there need to be changes to the quarrying and an end to that, we need to work with Meridian to make them whole in some way.
Okay. Good. Great. Okay, we'll start the next one with Rick. What is your vision for Burlington's downtown over the next 5 to 10 years?
Thank you very much for the question. So I know downtown is a very sensitive area to many people. And we've had good progress happen in the downtown over the last number of years. There's been plans over decades to have more population growth in the downtown. We still need to bring more people to the downtown. We have to do it in a controlled fashion. And that's one of my concerns with the lack of control that the city of Burlington has and other municipalities, is that we're not in a position to control the pace of development. We need and should want more development in the downtown, but we got to make sure that it's staged appropriately. The last thing we want is to have 5 or 6 cranes going up at the same time in downtown. And the challenge is when development applications come in, we have to deal with them. And if they all come in at once, we have to deal with them over a 6 or 7 month period. So our downtown has evolved in a very positive way over the years, and it will continue to evolve. One of the things I'd like to see in the downtown is take our parking lot 4, which is beside the beer store, north of the beer store and besides Village Square, and turn it into a park. And I know people are panicking about losing parking, but we would put the parking underground. We need more green space in the downtown. We need to figure out a way to create more green space, and that's one way that we can do it. We need to continue to facilitate and animate the downtown and make sure people enjoy themselves, make sure that our retailers are strong and continue to thrive down there and attract new retail in for some of the new developments. But we have a great downtown. We need to foster and encourage appropriate development over time.
So this is the class of thing where you have to work with the people down there and make sure they're on board with the ideas. Okay, so this is not my idea. We're going to do it no matter what. This is the kind of thing that I'd put forward, and we got to talk to the people down here. So number 1, the parking meters I think put downtown at a competitive disadvantage. They've got to go, and you should switch it around so it's 1 hour on Brand Street, and you go out from there so it's more convenient to come down. I can't even tell you the number of times I've gone down there and tried to pay for parking, and the machines do not work, okay? And then they just don't work. I mean, it's that simple, and it's just a pain in the ass, quite frankly. And I was down there. We were going to the the burger store down there, and I was with my family, and I have a bunch of small children, and I was paying for parking, and my little 5-year-old goes, "Dad, why are you paying for parking? It's free everywhere else." And it's a real problem creating a commercial model, okay, that fights with all these places where it is just easier to go. So I think one of the things we should do is move away from the parking meters. All the merchants pay into a parking fund anyway, so it's not like, you know, that they're getting some sort of free ride. Have 1 hour parking along Brand Street so people can run in and get things quickly, have 3 hours a little over, and then have all-day parking in the parking garages. And that'll create a situation where people who work down there, they have to walk because they can't park in the hour, and then those spots close to like run into one of these businesses will be freed up because they'll be available. And I think that would help the merchants put them on an even playing field with the sort of more traditional, you know, style of strip mall where you can just park and run in.
Thank you very much for the question. So my vision for Burlington in 5 years is a mixed-use, thriving, retail-friendly community of mid-rise buildings where we protect our heritage, we protect the character and charm of that community as we grow, and we can do it. But the reason I am running to be your next mayor of Burlington is to change the official plan that was approved 6-1 by this council, which will add, and this is online, you can see it, email me if you want the link. There are over 26 high-rise buildings on this plan. This is Brant Street and east of Brant Street from Ghent down to the lake. That is not what we want downtown. That is overdevelopment, and it is absolutely unnecessary. We are meeting our provincial growth targets downtown right now, and every staff report that we've ever gotten has indicated that. The votes by this council to approve developments that are 2, 3, and 4 times what the official plan requires us, what provincial mandates and targets require us, we can't blame the province for that. That's this council doing that. So if we want to have credibility when we go to Queen's Park and ask for reasonable growth, you need to send somebody to Queen's Park who has a track record of not voting for decisions that are 2, 3, and 4 times what the province has asked us to do. I'd like to see more office space downtown, especially on that parking lot. I'd like to see a post-secondary institution, and there are strategies being developed right now in cooperation with the Burlington Downtown Business Association, on which I sit as a board member, and the Burlington Economic Development Corporation to bring that. And I think we could put a great park on the roof of that building.
Thank you for the question. It's obviously, no matter where I've been in the city, whether I was in Alton or Heddon Forest or Tyndega, my end of town in the East End, the question about what's happening downtown has been the number one question at the door by far. And my answer has been this, that you asked about the vision for 5 to 10 years. First of all, my wife wants to move down there within 5 or 10 years, so that's one thing that's happening. But my vision is that downtown has to be accessible to all residents of Burlington. And I don't mean accessible from a physical point of view, but we have to be able to say that this is our downtown, regardless of where we live in the community, and be able to go down there and enjoy the amenities. And when I say the amenities, of course the parks that we have there now, I think we need a thriving retail environment. You know, people talk about Oakville downtown, but if you check the actual vacancy rates downtown Oakville, they're very, very high. We need to avoid that problem that they have there. I want us to understand that, look, not everyone's going to walk or cycle to downtown. We need opportunities for those people to get downtown from other areas, whether it's through transit or through the car. And I've been advocating that we, on the east side of downtown, we need another parking facility. That's in my plan. So I don't believe that downtown is an urban growth center as it is defined in the Places to Grow document. I think we need to get that removed, and then we will have control of any change and development that happens in the downtown area, and it will be our vision and not Queen's Park's.
Thank you. Okay, I think it's time for a little audience participation. I'm going right off the script here for a sec. Is that all right? Okay. Well, just because we're running low on time and there's a few questions left, this might flop, but I'm just gonna maybe ask for a shout out or cheers, or I don't know. We'll figure this out as we go. But we have three questions to choose from. We got one on marijuana. We have one on if you support free transit, and we have one on supports for seniors housing. How are we going to do this? Okay. Show of hands for a question on marijuana. Yeah? Do we want to squeeze in? Yeah, let's try. I was going to say clap. Okay, so clap for marijuana. Gee. Hold on. I'm pulling an Amy Schumer on that one. Let's take that out of context. Somebody walks in. Let's clap for marijuana. Okay. How about free transit during off-peak hours? I'm looking at Paul. Like, Paul, I'm going to go to you to make the decision. And seniors, subsidy to support seniors housing. Okay, it worked. I took 2 minutes of your time, but it was an experiment. So you're going to get us going on that one, Greg. So the question is, Burlington has no subsidy supports for seniors housing. Why not? Are you in favor of developing a support system?
Okay, no one's going to like my answer here. So, to me, the affordability problem is caused by two things. The federal policy of mass population expansion, and they do a bad job of deflecting that expansion into areas that really need it. So you get 150,000 people trying to descend into the GTA a year. And the provincial's policy of limited urban boundaries. Those two policies collide and create the affordability problem in my mind. And you want an illustration? My dad bought a house in Pine Meadow for $125,000. I bought one in Aldershot for $335 15 years ago, and that is off the table, right? And those are the two things that are driving the affordability problem. That's the two causes, right? And the only way you get at it is affecting one of those two things. I mean, at the end of the day, that's it, right? So the problem then is that people get squeezed out of their houses. There's nowhere to live. And the system, just the free market system, because the GTA is one huge market, right? It's not like Burlington is a market unto itself, right? If you start trying to change that market with, let's say, with really state seniors benefits in Burlington only, right? Then you will entrench and enlarge in the number of seniors that live in Burlington. Because it's not like this is some private, policy, right? And you will create more seniors living in Burlington because the free market will just work and people will be like, I'll get a better job in Burlington, a better deal in Burlington, I'll go there. So what we need to do is keep the cost of housing down for everyone, not just seniors. Like young kids need a place to live too, right? And we can't push everyone out of the housing market and say, oh, well, you can rent a 400 square foot apartment by the GO train for $2,000 a month. How lucky you are. So you have to get at the affordability problem using one of these two mechanisms.
Thank you. Marianne, do you need the question read? Or
No, I'm good.
Okay.
Thank you. So how do we get more seniors housing? So let's use the tools that we have and then add some, and I'll talk about both. So first, the tools that we have. One is inclusionary zoning. That's something new that we can require a certain amount of housing in new developments to be affordable housing. We can work with Halton Community Housing Corporation at Halton Region. So I sit on Health and Social Services Committee. I was one of many voices who said we need a new model for delivering affordable housing. It shouldn't be buy land, build a purpose-built building, and put everybody of a singular income in that place. It's very slow and it's very expensive and there's not land left. But what we can do is buy affordable housing units to take people off the Halton wait list for housing by investing in a fund. So we have done that at Halton Region, and at the Paradigm Go Station buildings that are in Burlington and Ward 2, we have 15 units of housing, and that was a conversation that I started with the developer of those buildings in Halton Region to pioneer this program. We can also work with Habitat for Humanity, a private housing provider, and in Burlington Ward 2, we have 2 developments, one that's 13 units, and one of those is an accessible unit, 1 floor intended for anyone who has accessibility issues, but we know a lot of senior folks do. And the other one is 18 units of townhouse development on Queensway, and that is the largest single build in the country. It's very significant. So all told, we have added 46 units of affordable housing just in Ward 2. So those are the tools that we have and we can use. We also need to look at co-housing opportunities and encourage that. The city has an accessory dwelling unit policy where you can add housing, add a basement apartment for somebody to live with you. We haven't had a lot of uptake, but allowing that to happen.
Okay.
Thank you very much for the question, and I've spent a number of my days at I think there are 27, 25 either retirement or long-term care homes in Burlington, and I'm about halfway through them. Look, I'm a little bit with Marianne on this one. I think that the city needs to be much more aggressive in its zoning to allow for seniors' residents, whether it's a retirement home, or in my case, I believe more particularly for long-term care. And I believe there is a gap between a retirement home and a full long-term care home, and we need to see if we can find the development that will come to Burlington to be able to fill that gap. I think we need to be able to be more flexible in our zoning to make that happen, and I think as mayor I would be very aggressive in terms of talking to those who are in the business to bring that to town. Now that's on the private sector side, and that would help, I think, relieve at least some opportunities for seniors housing in Burlington. The other area that I've been thinking about is, look, in Etobicoke, a high school has closed. The federal government is funding it, turning into housing for refugees. Why are we not at the table with our friends at the federal or provincial level saying there are a couple of schools closing in Burlington and they have big properties? Are there opportunities for us to develop senior housing opportunities at those sites? Those are the kinds of concepts and ideas that I think they need to come to the table. I think that our aging population in this community is going to be in great need for these types of residents in the very near future, and we need to move on it now and not wait till it comes to our door and it's too late. Thank you.
Yeah, thanks for the question. So about a third of us in the city of Burlington are over 55, 1/3, and 20% of us are 65 plus. So we know where this is going. People are living much longer than they've ever lived before. Life expectancies to continue to increase. And the reality is, if you have money, you'll be okay, right? If you have money, you'll be okay. The challenge is if you don't have the income to support the housing that you need as a senior. And typically, it's when people are widowed when they need the housing. And it can be from before, but typically when one is a widow. So we talked about some of the ideas already up here. A year ago, or a year and a half ago, Councillor Paul Sharma and I went down to Michigan to visit seniors' homes. It was pretty funny when we're crossing the border and the border guard asked us, where are you going? Well, we're going to look at seniors' homes. And anyway, he looked at us a little funny. But in any event, we went down there and we visited the United Methodist retirement homes and the Presbyterian retirement homes of Michigan. And in the state of Michigan, 35% of the seniors' housing is run by the not-for-profit, non-government sector. And it's like 3 or 4% in the city of Burlington. We got Rotary running Bonnie Place, or the original group was Rotary and a few other things, but it's very little. I believe there's an opportunity to create a not-for-profit, non-government, charitable organization that can develop seniors' homes and make them affordable. And I will continue to pursue that if I'm reelected. That's a big priority for me. We need to create opportunities for more seniors to live in dignity, because it's going to be a challenge. As the aging population ages, it's going to be very difficult for us to house seniors. We need to get at it now, and I plan to keep working on this.
Okay. Yep, just a sec. Okay. So we're in the home stretch, and I hope you can stay for a few more minutes after some closing comments from each of the candidates, because we have a special on-screen 2-minute presentation that I'll introduce shortly. But those are all the questions we have time for, and now we're going to move into the closing comments, and each candidate has 1 minute, and we're going to begin with Marianne.
Thank you. Well, thank you so much for being here. Thank you to our wonderful host, and thank you to my colleagues on the stage here. You have a decision to make, Burlington, and I would invite you not just to look at platform, not just to look at what folks on this stage are promising you, including me. Look at track record. Who's been in the trenches with you for 8 years, fighting for reasonable growth, not overdevelopment? Look at my voting record. Look at all the decisions that have come forward. I've supported reasonable growth, and I have opposed those areas that were not in the community's best interest, including developments that some citizens are now having to appeal on their own dime. I want this to be a city that is built with you and for you, and we do that when we work together. So on October 22nd, work with me and give me your vote as Marianne Mead Ward for mayor.
Thank you, Amy. And again, I want to thank Burlington Green for hosting us this evening and putting this fantastic opportunity on. I actually happen to agree with Marianne. We do need to look at track record. We need to look at the track record of those who are sitting on council now and are running for mayor. Look, if you look at my policies that I set out, whether it's talked about Liberty Village, whether it's about the traffic system, my colleagues up here with me have seemed to have adopted that stuff over the last couple of months. The other thing I want to talk about is that one of my strengths was collaboration. You can be against everything and accomplish nothing. And I want you to look at the track record of my track record of accomplishments for this community, and I want to look at what the last 8 years has brought here with the council and the candidates we have in front of us. What have they actually accomplished? Thank you.
Well, thanks everybody for being here tonight. You know, I lived in Burlington my whole life. I raised my family here. I've operated a business here as a financial advisor, and I proudly served as mayor for the last 8 years, accomplishing a great deal. I love Burlington, and I love serving as mayor. I don't need this job. I want this job. In order to continue making Burlington a sustainable and inclusive city that we're all proud of and fixing places to grow at the province, you need somebody that can work with others in a respectful, professional, and collaborative manner. And I have been doing that for 8 years. Councillor Mead Ward has had the last 8 years to develop relationships with council, and she's failed. How can she expect to build consensus as mayor? She says that 3 new councillors, she can control the agenda. How does she know that? That is not how it works.
Please.
The mayor has 1 vote on council. To get things done, the mayor must build consensus. And of all the candidates running for mayor, I'm the only one with a proven record of bringing council together. And this is the time for tested and stable leadership so we can continue to inspire our community and continue to get results for our city.
Okay. Greg, you pass the microphone down.
I'm okay. I know I am.
Okay, and 1 minute for Greg.
So I hope you have come away from this going, I don't know what's going on in Burlington, but we better look into it more, okay? And you better knock on your neighbor's door and go, what's going on? Because it's not 26 buildings downtown, okay? It's redevelopment targets on every single strip mall is marked for condos plus something else. All of them, every place we shop, all through the city. 3 massive power plant new cities of 30-story buildings around every GO train station, all down Fairview, all up Brent. It's everywhere, right? And this kind of pressure is reacted to. I just have to comment on one thing that Mike said. If those schools close and buildings get built on those buildings, on those playgrounds, the level of failure is unimaginable. The fact that we can't catch those schools and keep them as community centers and open playgrounds is beyond failure. So we got that. Sorry, I just got on that, but that
Okay,
is very
thank you.
upsetting to me.
Thanks.
And
Okay, good. You can keep that for 1 second there. Good. Okay, a round of applause, please. Yep. I ask if you could just hang in there for, honestly, just a few more minutes for a couple things. One is, again, obviously, thank you to these individuals here before you who've obviously put a lot of thought into all of their answers, and we really appreciate it. And again, to all of the candidates who've come out this evening, and good luck to all of you on your continuing journey on the campaign trail. I want to thank, these things don't just happen, these events. There's a lot of setup, and oh gosh, we're going to be doing a lot of chair collapsing tonight. But anyway, I really want to thank very much all of our friends at NUVO Network and the best team an ED could ever ask for, Burlington Green volunteers and staff. Thank you so much. I generally don't single folks out because I'm going to forget, but I do want to particularly thank a couple team members at Burlington Green. I want to thank Ursula right here. Yep. And she's going to kill me, but I need Marwa Salim, the lead organizer for this whole thing. Come on out. She did a fantastic job. And not only did Marwa take the lead in organizing tonight's event with our friends at NUVO Network, but she also has been stick handling the 31 questionnaires that have come in from our candidates and answering Burlington Green's 12 top burning environmental questions. So I know you're all going to race home and you're going to go online and you're going to go on to burlingtongreen.org and you're going to want to read their amazing answers to those questions. And she's been getting those all uploaded to the website where you can now view them. And lastly, I will point out, as our environmental organization is truly a very lean, not hardworking, not-for-profit. This event does come with costs. We want it to be a free event, but if you do feel you want to drop a loonie or a toonie in a jar on the way out, we'll put it to good use, and we will put it towards planting more trees in Burlington. Okay? And finally, just to close, we're going to dim the lights, and it's 2 minutes long, and we just decided that it would be nice to share a presentation that was created by a young man in Burlington named Kian Tran, and it was a school project, and it is titled Unseen. And part of the reason that we wanted to show it was because 4 years ago, almost right around now, I saw this video, just randomly saw it, and I thought it was beautiful, and it reminded me as a lifetime Burlingtonian how great our city is. And I actually, upon seeing it, the day after the election, I sent a link to the video to all of the current council members. And I said, congratulations, number one. And number two, I hope before you hit the ground running that you just can spend 2 minutes watching this video. So I hope you like it. I think that's pretty powerful because it's from a young person in Burlington, and their voice is very important in this election. And to close, I'll borrow a statement from President Obama, which I think is important, which he said, democracy works, but we gotta want it. Not just during an election year, but all the days in between. So get out and vote. Thank you for coming. Safe journey home.